speak with you all this evening. We'll go ahead and get this up and sharing, and let's see if I'll probably got to switch again, don't I?
Yes, sir. You got to switch.
There you go.
Sound
you see it
good.
all right now?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again. We'll try to get through this as smoothly as possible this evening. I know there's a big game here this evening, and I want to make sure everybody can get away and catch that on time tonight. So thanks for the introduction, Philip. My name is Jordan Shockley within the Department of Agricultural Economics, and we're going to touch on a few things this evening when it comes to fertilizer. I think first and foremost, we need to start out with what you can afford to spend on fertilizer. Philip mentioned the cheap fertilizer prices. I chuckled a little bit, but again, we know we've seen some record high fertilizer prices here in the past 2 years, and I don't anticipate that to come down dramatically in the near future. So how do you know what you can afford to spend? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some risk management tools that are available to you and things to think about. I'm sure the previous presenters have spoken about this, but we'll reiterate again. It's always good to do that when it talks about soil sampling, soil sample. And then a little out of the box thinking. I know the location where everyone here is on is not prime for broiler litter and applying that to fields, but we'll discuss some unique things that I've been hearing, and given the value that we're seeing now, there may be some options there for you to explore, again, out of the box thinking. So we'll start off with what you can afford to spend on fertilizer. Okay. So where do we even start? The first place I always tell producers to start is with what we call enterprise budgeting. Some of you may or may not have heard of enterprise budgeting before, but it's a great way to run some scenarios. And so what can we infer from enterprise budgets? Well, we can use these to project profit in the coming year. We can identify the greatest cost of production. We can do some sensitivity analysis when it comes to risk. We can look at break-even prices. So what do I mean by break-even prices? Those are those corn, soybean, tobacco, you name it, enterprise prices that you need to receive on what you grow to break even. Okay. And then we can look at just the kind of the opposite, given prices for whatever commodity you are growing or raising, what yields do you need, okay, to break even given a set price, okay? And so where can you find these? These budgets, enterprise budgets, are available here at our AgEcon website below. When you go to that website, you'll see a snapshot here on the right-hand side where you'll see that you click on that extensions tab up at the top, and then it will be on the left-hand side, a host of extension resources, and you can see that second one down there, which is that budgets and decisions tools. You can click on that, and that is the link that you see there. And it will provide a host of decision tools and budgets for you. So it's not just grain crops. There's tobacco. There is cow-calf budgets. There's a host of different things there. So go and explore. And that's where I would start. So what are we going to look at here when we utilize these budgets? We're going to look at these three items: sensitivity to risk, break-even prices, and break-even yields. Okay. And so what I've put up here for you, hopefully you can see it, is a sample corn budget. Okay. Corn enterprise budget. You can see at the top here. Let me see if I can't get my, let's let's see here. Give me 1 second. Where's my... Anyway, oops. You can see at the top here, you have gross returns per acre. So you have yields and prices, and basically anything in blue on these enterprise budgets, you can change and adjust to your unique situation, which is really, really nice. These aren't standard. I've just chose this as an example to walk you through on how things work. But you can see here, you can put in crop yields for your specific farm. You can put in grain prices, or for this case, corn. And then you can see all the cost breakdown, whether that's seed cost, nitrogen, fertilizer, P&K, everything that goes into growing a corn crop. Okay. And so we'll start off here. I can get, oops, come on now. Why is this? There we go. So you can see here, we'll start off with a corn crop. We've got our, on the right here, you see what, I just pulled these numbers. These are average numbers that we're seeing right now for urea, DAP, and potash. And again, what's interesting at least is nitrogen has actually gone down a little bit from prices we were seeing this time last year and earlier in February of this year, but DAP and potash prices have increased significantly. And so what can we tell here? You can see I pulled up some kind of average corn return and average corn yields over the past 5 years for that for your area. And that's at 160. And what's interesting is the price we're seeing for 2023 for corn. Okay. So we're looking at $6 corn. And even at these high input price that we're seeing here on fertilizer, right here at this red arrow at the bottom is your returns above what we call variable costs. So everything listed up here, you see nitrogen, seed, that's what are all considered variable costs. So even under high fertilizer prices, there is still a lot of profit to be had at 200 or at with $250 an acre expected returns. Okay, so that's one thing I want to keep in mind. Okay, even with high prices of fertilizer, given some of the prices we're seeing in the commodity space, especially corn and soybeans, there is still profitability to be had. Not as much as we'd like, right? But again, we can afford that NP and K under the current scenario we see here. Okay. What I want to do is highlight here at the bottom what you see when we talked about those break-even yields and break-even prices. Okay, you can see here that even under in this scenario, okay, you can have a corn yield of 120 bushels, and even at these prices, you can break even, cover your variable cost. Okay, this is an output from the enterprise budgets we have online. Alternatively, if we can grow 160 bushel corn price only needs to be 448 and we can break even. Okay. And again, these are at near record high fertilizer prices. Okay. So understanding what you can afford is key. Now, let's look at a scenario. So this is where we had corn at 150 pounds or units per acre. okay, to grow that 160 bushel corn. What happens if we just decided to dump a bunch of nitrogen on, okay, on that corn crop, say 200 units at that 90 cents per unit. Okay, you can see here at the bottom, your net returns above variable cost is still at $200 an acre. Okay, so again, I always say there's a lot of meat on that bone. Okay, even with high fertilizer prices. All right. Now, what you see here is this $4.77 break-even price. Okay, so that price increased. So that's what you need to cover your cost at 160 bushel corn. All right. And so we'll get into why that's important, and understanding this number is key. Okay. So this is what I call a not so good scenario, right? What if you had a bad year? Okay. For most of us in Kentucky, we experienced a drought this year, right? And so we didn't have average corn yields. So what if our corn yields dropped to 125 bushels an acre at $6 corn? Okay. And this is at applying that high nitrogen rate, okay, of 200 bushels or 200 pounds. Okay. You can see here, that is where you basically break even and earn $3 an acre. Okay. So you have a bad corn crop. We still got relatively high prices to support even that 200 bushel or 200 unit of nitrogen being applied. Okay. So we can run all these different scenarios with enterprise budgets. And you can see here that break-even cost is at $6.02 a bushel. All right. So this is what we were warning farmers across the state all late last year, early this year, right? About the perfect storm, about what can happen. Okay. So you have a corn crop, right? You apply the 200 pounds of nitrogen going crazy, and you not only get a low corn yield, right, but also the price of corn drops. Let's just say it drops to $5 in this case. Okay. So you've got the high prices of fertilizer. You've got the double whammy of low corn yield and a drop in grain price. And you can see here that results in the $122 of a loss. Okay. And so you need at least 150 bushels to cover at that $5 corn price, but you didn't. Okay. So we can run all of these scenarios, right? So what we need to start thinking about is, what can we do, right? You're managing how much fertilizer you're putting down. Okay. Corn yield. Okay. We talk about that's a production risk, right? It's hard to manage in a drought if you don't have irrigation set up. Okay. And so what are some of the things that can protect ourselves and protect that return that we're seeing here, so that the worst case scenario doesn't happen? All right. What can we do? Well, one thing we can do is protect prices. And what I mean by prices, we can protect the grain price side of things. Okay. So if we look at what December corn is selling for right now, it's $6. Well, right now, I pulled this up Friday. It was selling at $6.08. on the futures market. And here's November soybeans at 13.90. Okay. So what you do not want to happen is to get yourself stuck in this worst case scenario. So you have to do some risk management and some marketing strategies to protect yourself on that front. Okay. While pre-purchasing fertilizer can help you out by getting potentially a discount if ordered early enough, that's not gonna do very much if prices drop on these commodities. We've seen more volatility than we've ever had in prices, and so protecting that is key. And so for the row crop producers in the room, there are a lot more risk management tools available than what we call input price risk. All right. So we need to be utilizing these tools this fall and winter to avoid potential catastrophic outcomes. And so we want to avoid that buy high input price, corn, soybean price drop scenario. Okay. And when I talk about volatility, right, with these prices, last year, that December 22 corn contract. Okay. So we're looking at if you were in 2021 planning to hedge for December for the following year, there was a plus and minus range during that time frame of over $2. So you can see that range. It reached a high of 760 and a low of almost 350, a little bit below 350. Okay. So that is a huge range to be able to try to market a crop. Hopefully most of our producers hit that high range. Okay. Same thing with soybeans. We saw that soybean contract range plus or minus almost $3.50. Okay. That's more volatility than we've seen in a very long time. Okay. So again, we have management strategies to reduce this risk on the pricing side of things, to protect ourselves from high input prices. So when you think about going into this year, next year, we need to have a strong marketing strategy. Okay. And so here's a quick snapshot of some ways to manage risk, marketing risk, based on what you think is going to happen with the market. Okay. So there's a host of different strategies that you can do. So right now, if you think futures prices are going to go up and we're going to have a basis that strengthens, you can do that first option there and store and wait. Okay. However, what we were telling people a lot now is what happens. You want to protect that downside price. So we said that corn contract was at 680 for next year. What you need to be thinking about going into the 2023 cropping season is protecting downside risk in an environment where there's high input prices, such as fertilizer. Okay. So one of those mechanisms is buying what we call a put option. All right. So what is even a put option when you think about protecting downside price risk in the market? Okay. Basically, it's an option to sell a futures contract at a specific price. The buyer of the put, so you have the right, but not the obligation to sell that futures contract at a specific, what they call strike price at any time given during a given period. Okay. So your loss is limited to the premium itself that you pay to purchase that. So you as a producer can buy and pay that premium to sell that right. So let's go through a pretty straightforward example here on what this looks like. Okay. So if I'm looking into 2023 and planning, right now, I can buy a $5.50 December futures put option, okay, for 25 cents. So that sets basically a floor on the futures price at 525. So that's that 550 contract minus your 25 cents for that premium. Okay. So going into the year, if the December's future contract is greater than 550, then your option basically has no intrinsic value, right? You could just sell your corn at $6 or that 608 and be good. Okay. However, if that December's futures contract drops below 525, regardless of how far it drops, so if it drops to 325, then the value is set at that floor at 525, which you bought. Okay. So if you think about it, at 525 and the futures price right now is 606, you've basically removed 86% of future price risk. Okay. So this is a good strategy to do in volatile markets that we're seeing right now. Okay. You want to protect that price floor. Okay. Now, but this is interesting how this works with crop insurance. Okay. So you can do this. Think of this as a pre-crop insurance type strategy. So after crop insurance prices are determined, you can keep that option if you like where the crop insurance price is set, and you can keep the put option. But if you're comfortable in the crop insurance, you can exit that position. So you can exit that put option and basically recoup a portion of that 25 cents that you paid. So it may be only 15 cents a bushel. Okay. So this is a good strategy to use pre-crop insurance prices. And you can back out of it with a small portion of that premium being paid. Okay. So what does this look like? Let's just say you did this strategy and had this 525 floor set into your enterprise budget. So you use your marketing strategy. Okay. You set that corn price at 525. One thing to note here is that it assumes a zero basis right now. Okay. At 160 bushels. With high fertilizer prices, you still have $129 return. Okay. So it's a strategy of potentially losing, in this case scenario, it would have been, compared to the other one, $3, basically break even, or you coming out ahead of $130. All right. So one thing to also note here is this break-even price of $4.47. So we're assuming here a zero basis, but even if your local basis dropped to 78 cents, you'll still break even. Okay. So things to think about with managing this pricing side of things. So quick checklist, right? write down your risk management plan and your marketing plan. Okay. Have a plan going into this season. All right. Just don't fly by the seat of your pants and enter these volatile markets. Just not going to turn out well. Okay. Identify any gaps and key times of the year for your production. Okay. Evaluate any storage versus anticipated production. Identify the tools that you're comfortable with. Seek expert advice. Okay. If you're not comfortable doing some of these, using some of these tools, seek help. Okay. And then execute that plan and revisit that plan regularly. Okay. These prices are changing a lot on a daily basis. Okay. So you may need to revisit this plan more now than ever. Okay. So again, understand what you can afford to pay. Current prices are looking good to support that on the crop side of things. Okay. And again, have a plan, because you don't want something to happen where prices just tank and you're not protected. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next thing that you've probably heard over and over again over these, the 3 previous presentations. Okay. Soil sample. Okay. I look at this from an economist perspective as it's a cheap form of insurance. All right. If you think about soil sampling, it can range $6 to $10 a sample, but some counties in your area, it may be free. Okay. There are counties in the state that offer free soil samples up to a certain number. Okay. So again, looking at that, if you think about every 10 acres, that's 60 cents to $1. All right. That is a very cheap form of insurance to understand what's going on. Even with grid sampling, you're looking at $7 an acre. Again, it's still cheap when you look at what you can save. All right. And so if you look at our AGR1 soil test recommendations, this is for corn. And the second one's for soybeans. All right. So one thing to think about when you're getting your soil test results back, if you're in this medium range, all right, if you're in this medium range, you may be able to forego P and K for this year. Okay. And what does that look like? You can mine the soil a little bit, and at current prices, you're saving $41 an acre. So for that $1 an acre cost could inform you to save $41 an acre. All right. So again, it is cheap insurance. So what does that look like? If you can get by with 0 P and K, and even at that high nitrogen rate of 200 with 160 bushel corn, high prices, you've got almost $300 in return. Okay. So again, there's opportunities here to use soil sampling to save a little money on costs. Other fertilizer. Okay. What we want to do during this time is avoid what we call fairy dust, or one of my colleagues calls it bugs in a jug, right? Things that aren't proven. Okay. It may be that you can come up with $41 in savings just on some of these other fertilizer sales, stuff that's not proven. Okay. So really rethink your strategies and go back to the basics of N, P, and K. Okay. So on the other hand, there are some other fertilizers out there that are a viable option for the state. Okay. And It's a viable option for not only row crop producers, but those on pasture or hay ground. Okay. And again, thinking out of the box is broiler litter. Okay. I know it's not produced in your area. Okay. However, I know of multiple producers in and around central Kentucky and up towards the Mason County area that are shipping it in. Okay. Shipping it in and they're making it work and shipping it in by as far as Georgia. All right. And so you may think, why in the world would I haul litter that far? Well, if you look at the nutrient content of litter, just the NP and K value, there's other micronutrient values to litter, as well as lime. If you're doing grain crops and you're spring applying litter, the current value is $88 a ton. If you're applying it on pasture or hay production, that's over $100 a ton right now. All right. If you can get litter for cheap enough, it may be worth hauling. Okay. It may be worth hauling. So, however, the values change based on soil test value. So if you do a soil test and it says that you don't even need NP or need P and K, the value is too high, you hold off, you do not need litter. Okay. So understanding what you need, when you need it, and if you can get it. Again, there's been some creative methods of shipping in fertilizer or poultry litter. Okay. So again, understanding that and what the current values are, that may be an option for you. And so there are some tools available for you on our website. This is what the economic value poultry litter tool looks like for grain crops. Okay. It's a user-friendly tool. Everything in blue you can change. And you can see there on the right-hand part is hauling inputs. And then that last blue entry there, it says miles hauled one way. So if you're calling around looking for litter, you can do a sensitivity analysis and change that number. Let's just say it's 200 miles. Okay. So how does 200 miles impact? Is it worth hauling? So you can put those values in and investigate out of the box thinking of shipping in litter to combat some of these high prices. Okay. So again, another option for you potentially. I've got the same tool for pasture, hay, and silage. Okay. Looks very similar. All you have to do is change where it says established alfalfa up there. Those are drop downs. You can see what your pasture or hay silage situation's like, and you can make changes and adjust accordingly. Okay. So again, understand what you can afford. Don't go into the year not protected on the price side of things. Think about out of the box thinking with fertilizer. Use those what if scenarios. Okay. I encourage you, please go online, use those enterprise budgets. Okay. And do those what if. Current grain prices are strong. Okay. And we want to protect that downside price risk. And I could say a lot, right? I can try to predict what input prices are going to be, but we don't know what the situation is going to be. Fertilizer market's a global market. right? We don't know what's going to happen with Russia. We don't know what's going to happen with China. We don't know what's going to happen with tariffs on inputs. Okay, there's a lot of risk between now and when we need it. Okay, so again, how do we hedge? Soil test, soil test, soil test. Okay, there may be opportunities to forego P and K the coming year if you can get it. Culture litter is a great alternative. All right, so call around. It may be worth your while, at least just to make a few phone calls and see if you can't try to access some, if not around the state, then nearby states. Okay, so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and absolutely open it up for questions